Anytime I've ever gone into a cafe environment and I look to find the specific Wi-Fi network that belongs to that cafe, I usually pull up my list of networks and I see a long list. Especially if I'm in an area with a lot of businesses, we might see a bunch of wireless network names. So the question is, where is this station, maybe my laptop, where's it getting all of these network names from? Well, these network names are actually being advertised by the access point, and these have a specific name for them. They are known as a service set identifier, or an SSID. The SSID is essentially the network name. And when we are configuring this SSID on a network, we're going to find that we can tie a lot of properties to this specific network. For example, wireless security. I might decide that I'm going to use some specific security mechanism on here. I might tie this to a specific set of network properties, maybe even limit the amount of bandwidth and throughput that stations are allowed to have. I mean, these are all the different types of properties that we can map to a specific wireless network. And so oftentimes what we're going to find is that when we're in the world of wireless networking, that we're going to think of a wireless local area network, or a WLAN, as being tied to a specific SSID. Now, there's a few things to consider with the SSID. First of all, the limitations. An SSID is meant to be ASCII, meaning in most cases alphanumeric, but really anything that we can enter into a keyboard should suffice for an SSID. And there's going to be a maximum of 32 characters for this. The reason for this is because when we're advertising the SSID out, it takes the form of 32 bytes, and each byte is typically representative of an ASCII character. So we are often going to want to make this human readable. This isn't technically a requirement, but the idea here is to provide help to the user who's trying to join a network. And just like this situation up here, I entered a cafe, I'm looking for their network. These network names are supposed to be helpful. So we want them to be somewhat helpful, especially if I'm a business and I want people connecting to my SSID, but also not too helpful. We should not be providing personal information in here. For example, I wouldn't want to create an SSID called Kish 221 Baker Street, or I guess 221B Baker Street. You know, this is a famous address in the literature here. We're talking about Sherlock Holmes, but ultimately, if I were to provide my last name with my address and advertise this as part of an SSID, that would be providing too much information. We don't want to provide personal information in our SSIDs, although as I look at all the network names around my house, I certainly see a lot of last names in there. And so ideally, we don't actually do that because, once again, we're just providing personal information and broadcasting it out there. But something in a business environment might be something like a staff network, maybe something that's called hospital staff and hospital guest. And so this way I can tell that, oh, I'm supposed to be logging into the guest network. I'll click on that and attempt to join that way. Now, the other thing to consider from an access point perspective is one access point can actually support many SSIDs. Now, Cisco recommends no more than 2 to 3 SSIDs, and there's some really good reasons for that, but technically they'll support up to most times 32 SSIDs, sometimes 16 SSIDs, depending on the hardware platform. But we do not want to exceed 2 or 3 if we can control it, although in some situations like this type of deal down here where we've got a staff and a guest, we're already at 2. If we need another couple, then we have no choice but to go to 3 or 4 or whatever the situation is. So one access point can have many SSIDs, and conversely, access points can share an SSID. And this is important. We want this to be this way. If I, again, am going into a hospital area, there's going to be dozens of access points in a hospital. I would expect that I just see these 2 network names no matter where I am in the hospital. So all the access points in that environment are sharing an SSID. And we're going to see how this ties into our wireless network configuration here in the next video. Thanks for watching. Be sure to click here to subscribe to CBT Nuggets and click the notification bell to make sure that you're aware of every time we post new content. If you're interested in a career in IT or you want to brush up on your IT skills, then swing over to our website, and while you're there, be sure to sign up for a free trial.